thing from another world. This is the spot where it was first seen, and these are the first people who saw the thing. How did it get here? Where did it come from? What is it?
That thing's alive, sir. I saw it. I shot at it. I hit it. I know it. Nothing happened. It just kept coming at me, making a noise like a cat mewing. Captain, it was awful. You could have seen those hands and those eyes. Captain, you've got to do something about it. You've got...
Is it human or inhuman? Earthly or unearthly? Baffling questions, astounding questions that not even the world's greatest scientific minds can answer.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world, as different from us as one pole from the other. If we can only communicate with it.
See? What happened, Doctor?
In the greenhouse, I was working. I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Then a blast of cold air, and I heard Olson scream.
Come here. Get in the corner. Now hold this in front of you. Stay by the light switch.
1.9. Needles hit the top. Horror Hounds, welcome to the Classic Horror Podcast. We are back with episode 19, and we're kicking off a little bit of a 1950s season. So coming off of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, we've got another 1950s horror, sci-fi horror, as you know, most were from the 1950s. And today we are talking The Thing from Another World, 1951, Howard Hawks production. What do you think, Michael?
As you said, like we're coming off the back Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I feel much like I did about Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, sorry, not sorry. There are no guilty pleasures. Like there was stuff to like. Holy hell, that burn, the spaceship explosion. I was like, holy hell, whoa, right on, good on you.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, we're gonna get into everything. But I just overall, like, I'm glad I saw it. But meh.
Yeah, didn't like hit you. Yeah, same. I mean, I had a real appreciation for it, especially with it being a Howard Hawks production. I'm a big fan of his. We're getting to his other films in a little bit, touch on them. Obviously, he uncredited directed this. You know, a couple of the actors said he definitely directed it. Others said no, he didn't. You know, it was the guy he hired, but. Yeah,
I've heard he definitely, like, unequivocally directed some of it.
Yeah. I mean, he was a powerhouse, right? And this was like his project as well. Okay. He's the one that got this going. He's the one that approved the monster, if you will, the being, the thing at the end of it. He's the one that approved the whole design of that. I think it took him something like 6 months to get a design that he was happy with. Yeah, so his fingerprints were definitely on it all. Obviously, he's a powerhouse director. I don't know if you're familiar with some of his other films, but you know, he's had success, you know, and he went on to have.
Right. I am woefully uneducated on Hawks. I know his name, I know his legend, and I'm certain when you start listing shit, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I've seen that. Oh, I know that."
Yeah, definitely.
But like, I don't know dick about this man.
Oh no, like definitely. Like we're definitely getting to that, but I reckon I'll name a few, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, okay." Oh, right. Okay. Like, you know, he's one of those directors that once you start looking at like a director's body of work, then you put it together. But in terms of like, I would probably argue that some of the films he made, especially later in his career, are probably bigger than him. So you definitely know the films. Even if you haven't seen them, you definitely know the films. If you know they're Howard Hawks or not, like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. But his fingerprints are kind of on this. A little bit. I kind of can see where he probably did direct it, but that's definitely not writing off the guy that actually directed it. He, you know, some people say no, it was definitely him. He definitely directed it. I think one of the actors worked with him in TV. I believe the director is actually, this is the only film he ever made, and and then he become like, you know, he just worked in a shit ton of TV. But a couple of the actors did work with him in TV and said, oh no, this was very much his directing style. This is very much what he'd done. But anyway, we'll jump into Howard Hawks in a little bit. So obviously, given your reaction up top, this didn't, set you on fire, if you will.
Nah.
Do you think part of that is because of the very, very famous and far superior remake, John Carpenter's The Thing?
Not yes, not no. And I was listening to a podcast and they were discussing how you don't get to. It was with Gorley and Rust. It's a couple of improv dudes and a producer on a bunch of the Earwolf podcasts.
Okay. Yeah.
And they started by going. It was called In Voorhees We Trust with Gorley and Rust, and they just went movie by movie through the Friday the 13th franchise.
Oh, nice.
And then they just kind of just started going through different franchises. And I was listening to them discuss the Alien versus Predator. They were discussing Alien versus Predator, and so I believe it was Matt Gorley who said something along the lines of, "You don't get to Alien and you don't get to John Carpenter's The Thing without this film." And it was just kind of a throwaway thing that he said, and I was like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I
okay,
can see
yeah,"
that.
because and there's a lot of really interesting ties between this film and John Carpenter's The Thing, visual things like the title card of The Thing,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
which like I laughed out loud and audibly went, "Hey!" I was
Yeah.
totally the Caprio meme from Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were some interesting like some of the hallways were similar, some of the camera movements were similar,
Yeah.
but and camera movements, like I really enjoyed some of the cinematography. There is enjoyment, there is some really great, but overall I was a lot of it had to do with the fact that the cast was just too large and they all looked
Agreed.
similar
Agreed.
and sounded identical.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I feel like,
Oh, thank God.
yeah.
Oh,
No, I
because
feel.
I was like, am I wrong? Like they sound the same.
I mean, for me, that's definitely where I didn't gel with it. Is the way I'd put it. Is
Yeah.
like you said, I appreciate the look of it. I appreciated the story they were trying to tell. I really like the subtle way they were kind of sowing the distrust among them and the distrust with the government and the distrust of why they're there and what they're researching and stuff like that. I really like that. I really like the idea of the madness that is creeping in. That works. But if there's anything that I would take from the classic horror films we've looked at so far, or other classic horror films I love, or if we're going to John Carpenter's Thing, is for me, there's a real lack of truly memorable characters from this
Yes.
film. Like none of them really, really stand out. Like I
I
don't
might
feel I come
argue
away from it.
that the one lady stands out because like I really appreciate like not the first one we meet, not like the doctor,
No, not the
but the
Doctor.
one who's like
Yeah,
really kind of like aggressive. The one who
yes,
isn't she also the one who figures it out?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So like I
So I
actually
believe her
like I
name.
kind
I
of dug.
believe the character's name is Nikki.
Okay.
But but I does she stand out because, and I tell you, like completely like open with you, this is because like I obviously had seen a lot of Hulk stuff. This was actually my blind spot on the Hulk stuff, and I'd never really gone here, so I couldn't. It's kind of one of them things where I'd seen like a lot of clips from it, and I couldn't really work out if I'd seen the whole film or not. And no, I can
Okay.
tell you after watching it, it's like this was the first time I had actually sat through and watched the whole film.
Okay.
And one of the things that did throw me off a little bit is I don't remember ever seeing any clips with a female character in it, and obviously John Carpenter's
Right.
The Thing is very famous having no women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this, as soon as like you see her and she's with the boys and she's part of that gang really and like the whole thing that's going on, I don't know if it's too harsh to say that's why she was memorable, because I don't feel
I
like the
mean,
character was
I'm not
particularly.
mad at that. I don't agree, but I don't disagree. I hope
Yeah,
that makes
yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
Like because like for me, I mean, maybe she's just the most to me she's the most memorable thing because she's the most stand out in demeanor and of the era. Oh, hey, this lady's kind of badass.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that.
Just that there was a character who was just kind of like owning her sexuality, if you will, and also, you know, extremely smart, as in the reason that the film ends the way it ends, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if like one of my problems was the way she is kind of just introduced in a like it turns into quite a like sexual scene. And I wonder, like as soon as I was like, oh, okay, is this where we're going with it? Like, is she just part of this gang because that's the purpose she serves? Like, thankfully, no, it didn't seem to go that way. But
Right. No, if she had just, you know, wound up sleeping with one or
there
more
you
of
go.
them, it
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
been completely. I would not be having the same
Yes.
conversation that we're
Yeah,
having
yeah.
right now. It would
Definitely.
be utterly different. But the fact that it not only does it not go there, but she's in control, and
Yes.
the men aren't just submissive in the scene; they're like cool with being submissive in the scene.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I think that definitely stands out, and I think she does a really, really good job with bringing that role home, definitely. And then the other character, I would say, does stand out, if any of them stand out, just because against the other Mao types, he was a little bit different, was the character of Ned Scott, who was
Shit, which was he?
he's like the reporter guy that's like
Yeah,
trying to
no, he
get the
was cool.
story
He
out.
was cool. I
Right.
mean, well, I mean, as cool as he could be in this movie.
Yeah. And again, like I feel like it's just because he was so different to the other guys, like all the other guys were just, yeah, they just kind of bled into one, right? They're all these like alpha males where he wasn't. He was the one that was kind of being pushed around a little bit. But again, I don't feel like any of the characters really grabbed me. But what I do feel like the film done well was the way it used those characters to navigate its way to the end of the picture. Like you are just waiting, almost in like classic horror fashion, for that showdown, right? Like you are just waiting for the showdown with the thing. And I do think it comes together quite nicely, actually. I do like the way it comes together and the ending you get. And again, like me and you have always said on this, you know, these classic horror films playing loose with their use of fire, which
Oh
always,
my
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, that end scene, right? Like just,
So
yeah,
impressive. That was actually the one thing I had seen before I watched the movie. Was I
yeah.
had
Or
seen
not
that
the, sorry, not the one that actually really got me wasn't the end scene. It was it's towards the end where
the one in the
the
bunker.
where the thing
Yeah,
comes in the
that's what I was
room
talking
and
about.
then oh yeah man, wow, like that, just the way like the monsters pushing people around and then they're going up to him and trying to push him around, and you're just like, people are going to get set on fire, people are going to get burnt, people are going to get like, this is insane, you'd never have that today. And it's like a lovely wide shot of it as well, so you can see all the chaos
Yeah.
unfolding. But
And
yeah,
just
I think
and
that
you
worked.
know it's real fire. There's no
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, there's
not
no
just
ifs
because
or
of when it
buts.
was made, but
Yeah.
because of the way the fire is moving. It couldn't be anything
Yes,
but
yes. Oh yeah,
real.
no ifs or buts, man. That's real far. And also the way, like, once the monster leaves the room, once the thing jumps out the window, there's just trails of fire left behind where like other stuff is just set on fire, and it's like, damn, someone get a fire extinguisher in there. Yes, yeah. But again, just playing loose with their use of fire, which always makes me laugh actually. But yeah, you would never ever get that today. I actually think I managed to find a couple of behind the scenes photos, which obviously I put in over the top of the podcast, and there's some really good behind the scenes of the guy in the suit just getting extinguished down, you know, because he's you know, that is real fire. They're just setting a guy on fire. It's yeah, it's pretty cool when, you know, a stunt that you don't see too often anymore. You do see it now and again, but yeah, you don't
And
see
I
it too often.
love that they're getting better and better. Like they don't have to be in giant bulky suits anymore. They could they
Yes.
got that gel,
Yeah.
that fucking gel.
Yeah. And also they kind of like build it in, right? Like the look of the character is kind of built with that in mind. It's like, we're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
get there, we're gonna set this character on fire. It's gonna get a little bit bulky. We'll just fucking build that in. Just make it a little bit bulky. And on that note, what did you think of the design of the monster slash alien slash the thing?
You know, given that there were like 11 million people in the movie, I appreciated that, you know, with the budget that they had, they created something that's if not, iconic and all-time great. It's definitely it's imposing also because of its actor, who interesting is also in Them, which we're going to cover at some point,
Yes, we are.
and was also in Gunsmoke, like a
Yeah.
lot of it. Like most of it. But it's definitely like a dude in a suit, and I don't mean that like derogatorily, but it's like a little, I don't know, man. Like, the creature is just so iconic and amazing, and it's a dude in a suit. And this is like, oh, that's a cool dude in a suit.
Yeah.
And I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's funny actually because you're based on some stuff I've read and some reports out there. Oddly enough, what I'm getting at is the first time I'd really heard of this film, opposed to obviously that John Carpenter remade it, it's actually around Frankenstein, because the makeup artist on this was a dude called Lee Greenway. And as I said at the top of the show, it took him ages to get a design that Howard Hawks was happy with. And there is like this, again, it's all rumor to some extent, but there is a rumor that the one thing they couldn't really get right was the look of the head on the monster. And
Okay.
eventually Howard Hawks was like, just give me a Frankenstein head. And that's why it kind of has that flat top.
I almost didn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
No,
So that was essentially Howard Hawks, like, after it, I think it was like 5-6 months, was just like, give me a Frankenstein head, and then like was happy with it. So that was kind of the first time I heard of it, because it was like in the influence of Frankenstein still going. People were like, why doesn't it look this good? Why can't we have Frankenstein? And you can definitely see that, because especially the very, very end, when they're trying to trap it in the electrical trap.
Yes.
And just like how lumbering he is, and the way he moves, and
The way he's
like
walking.
that. Yeah, man. Like, it's Frankenstein all over, right?
Art begets art, whatever.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So we've touched on the cast, we've touched on the monster. You said that you appreciated some of the direction, some of the cinematography. Let's just touch on that a little bit, because I think the cinematography in this film actually does really hold up. And I managed to watch a really nice HD version of this, and yeah, it definitely holds up.
Bought it in HD. It's when you have a cast as large, you have to either have an extremely wide frame and or move your camera in interesting ways, and they managed to do both things I think equally well. I mean, tell me if you disagree. Like, they tended to just figure out how to frame everyone in a static shot pretty well most of the time. But when the camera started moving, it was like, it wasn't just because it was moving and it had been static that it was interesting. It was because they had genuinely interesting tracking shots. People, you know, Aaron Sorkin, West Wingy conversations moving through hallways.
Moving through hallways, yeah, no, definitely, yeah, I completely agree. I think there's some stuff that really, really holds up. I think the hallway work is really, really nice. Like you said, we actually touched on it in the Creature in the Black Lagoon episode, where we were saying about the way that it's blocked out, where you're trying not to have anyone in front of each other. You're trying to work out where everyone is. I don't think this achieves it as well as Creature in the Black Lagoon did, but that also could be that there is more people in the frame at any one time, and a lot of them are
2
very
or 3
similar.
times as most times.
Yeah, exactly, right?
There were so many people.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that probably lets the blocking down a little bit, just because it does get a little bit confusing about who everyone is, and there are people that you kind of wonder why they're in frame. So I feel like there's something lost on that. Like, you've obviously got your main people, right? You've got like your 4 main characters, and then like you just have other people that surround them, and that can get a bit jarring of like, who the fuck are these people? Why are they in every frame? But
like
I do think
said,
that
it's like 4 people. It's like 4
4
6
main
people.
characters. Yeah.
And there are conservatively like 11 people at most times.
Yeah, you get a lot of people in the frame. You get a hell of a lot of people in the frame. But I do feel like they manage it somewhat well, and then other times it does become a little bit blurry. But in terms of like the hallway shots, I think the shots outside in the snow and the way they work a lot of that's really nice. that works out really, really well.
Oh no, absolutely. And I mean, just moving back for like a second, I just like I'm not saying that like there can't be a lot of characters. I mean, Ocean's 11, both and the Clooney work really well, but also all of them feel necessary. All of them are essential,
Well,
and
they feel individual as well,
yeah,
right? Where like
just
sometimes in this they don't feel as individual. Like it's a little bit like in
I defy you to close your eyes and count how many actual humans are in this movie.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
just listen and tell me that you can tell how many people are in
yeah,
that
yeah.
shot. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, you do get it in a, you do get it. You know, this isn't something that people have learned to do. You go back to a lot of classic cinema in general, and there is a shit ton of people in a lot of those films, especially like the really big, you know, more epic films. Sometimes in them frames, there's loads of people, but they seem to like all have their place and manage it. Where this does seem, I think, kind of they're undone a little bit by the sets as well, because obviously the sets are meant to be claustrophobic and it's meant to
yeah,
feel crammed in. But then when you cram quite a few people into that, it becomes a little bit blurry at times. But like I said,
yeah,
the hallway stuff is really good. I think anything with the Thing is really good. I really like the way some of that shot. All the stunt stuff is really,
yeah. Like they really know how to frame the
yes,
thing. They know how to like let it linger in
yeah,
shadow, if not entirely. You know, just right.
yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, and I think the my favorite stuff is the stuff outside. There's a lot of like really, really nice stuff outside. There are like some, I did notice some like quite jarring cuts. Like there's a cut where, you know, when they all like towards the beginning of the film, when they kind of like work out where the spaceship is, and then they're all standing around in a circle. And then you get this like music that swells up during the wide shot of them all standing in a circle. Then they like punch in for a close up of one of the characters where he is kind of like explaining what's going on, and the score just
Okay,
cuts,
I think.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it just cuts, and it's this really jarring cut where you're like, oh, okay, that was strange. I don't really know why that happened, but yeah, I thought the cinematography and that was very interesting. I think their use of the space outside, and that's why I say I think maybe they were undone a little bit by the claustrophobic settings and where they were, you know, the sets that they were filming on, because once they were outside and they had a bit more room to play with, I think it really opens up, and it, you can tell a little bit more about, oh, okay, these are your main players, these are your lackeys, you know, you get a better sense of who's who, and it just being spread out a little bit more. But
Oh, no,
yeah,
no,
I do
absolutely.
really like that.
Like, you know, again, like I'm not saying that a large cast is a bad thing. It just when the majority of them are, you know, almost inarguably disposable, it just feels too much.
Yeah, I completely agree, man.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I don't think that's, I don't think many people would have a problem with agreeing with that, to be honest, because I think
Yeah.
the main players in this film come across quite well, you know, and I
Oh,
think
absolutely. Yeah.
they could have stood out even more if they wasn't always closed in with other people. But then again, would you lose some of the frenzy of the piece? Would you lose some of the kind of madness that's happening while they're in isolation? Maybe. I mean, you know, it's to be seen. I definitely think they do something right. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, by no means am I saying that. But yeah, I think for me, that's just what didn't gel, and obviously the same for you. So yeah, that was a little bit interesting. Let's I just briefly want to come back round to the directors of the piece and touch on Howard Hawks just a little bit, just
Yeah, definitely.
because,
Let's do that.
like you said to me, it's a guy that you know the name of, you know, you kind of know he's this big classic Hollywood director, but he's weirdly he's one of these directors that until you kind of start looking at it, he's not associated with properties as much as other directors would be. And I think part of that might be that actually some of the properties he directed actually kind of outgrew the name. They were a lot more bigger than he was, and also starred like Hollywood heavyweights, right? So like, I'll reel off a couple. So we'll start with he. This isn't the only film of his that was later remade and later remade into an absolute classic. He directed the original Scarface before that was remade.
I like that movie. Have you
Yeah,
seen
it's a
that
good film,
movie?
man. Yeah, it's a good film.
I got that. I got that. Scarface '83. Set that was the first time that the original was available on
The
DVD.
original was
Comes
available. Yeah.
in that crazy with the money clip and everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a good film, man. I really like that
It
film.
is.
Like I said, he is a notable director. Then the next film I'll reel off is a film called The Big Sleep, which stars Humphrey Bogart.
There it is. Yeah.
Really, if you haven't seen
I've
it, I
not
can't.
watched it, but I think I own it.
Oh, okay, really interesting. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall. You
that's what like
cannot,
I love
you
to
can't
have
go
and
wrong.
have not. Like to be honest with you, I'll take the have and have not over Casablanca. I'm sorry if that makes me weird.
No, no. Casablanca's my favorite film of all
Oh
time,
no,
but no.
okay, I love Casablanca. I know you. I know that's your favorite film of all time. But I don't know, man. Like I just I
No, I
in
get it.
term, I'm not saying it's a better film, but like I have more fun with it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, man. It's not.
Okay,
No
there it
one's a
is.
gatekeeper here. Watch what you want. Enjoy what you want.
There it is. There are no guilty pleasures.
There are no guilty pleasures, exactly. And then getting into the big ones now. So like, and I mean real, like they're big, right? What I touched on was big, but these are. So he also directed Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, the Marilyn
Oh,
Monroe
right on.
absolute classic. So like I said, working with like real stars. So like if you say Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, most people do not say the Howard Hawks film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. They say the Marilyn Monroe.
There it is. Yeah.
Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, so that might be why he's not really associated. And then oddly enough, the film that set me on the Howard Hawks path, as in, oh, he directed this as well. What else has he directed? Is one of, if not maybe my favorite westerns of all time, Rio Bravo.
Uh, I am familiar. I have not seen it.
It's obviously most people know it for John Wayne. Obviously, like,
Westerns are a real blind spot for me. That's a story for another time.
oh yeah, definitely.
I've
I'm
only
a
seen a
big
few.
western, despite like some obvious problematic issues with some classic westerns. They are like, yeah, I'm a big western fan. I love the.
I
I
mean,
think
I'm
the
not gonna lie.
cinematography in
Like High
westerns
Plains
is.
Drifter is awesome, but holy hell, it's awful.
Oh yeah, there's some horrible fucking shit, man. That like is probably should have been questionable back in the day, but you know
I
it's
would
definitely questionable.
think.
Yeah, you
Anyway,
would hope so, right? You would hope so. But if you're gonna watch Rio Bravo, do not watch it for John Wayne. Watch it for Dean Martin. Dean
okay.
Martin is
I
incredible.
mean, if you love it, you kind
Absolutely
of don't have to sell
fucking
me on it. But for
incredible.
those that don't know anything about it, like,
Yes.
take a tiny detour, sell people on it. Like,
Oh well,
what's the
Rio
rundown?
Bravo. So
Yeah.
Rio Bravo is so if you've seen any Western, you know, we can talk spaghetti Western, we can talk about John Ford films, you know, as in The Searchers, all great, right? All classics. They're all very, very grand, incredible cinematography, the incredible landscapes, you know, shot out in mainly Arizona, I think, in the US, and just insane, man. Like reusing a lot of sets and stuff like that, you know, and TV shows will later go on to use these sets and stuff. And also, like for me, a lot of westerns from John Ford to Leone, they kind of write the blueprint on a lot of modern cinematography. Like I will always argue that if you want to learn filmmaking, as in shots, blocking, and editing, go and watch Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. That will
Okay.
teach you anything, right?
All
That
right.
little bit of a detour there, but like what I'm getting at is that's not Rio Bravo. Rio Bravo is not a big grand western. Rio Bravo is a very character. They're all character driven,
Really?
but this
Okay.
is a very character driven, very small town like gunfight basically, and it you know it's got obviously John Ford, John Ford, sorry. Obviously, it's got John Wayne at its center, and then Dean Martin is this kind of like drunk that he enlists to help him out with the you know an ordeal in the small town. And yeah, it's great, man. It's just this great small town shoot 'em up. Yeah, you can't go wrong with it. It's really really good. And again,
Right on.
it will just teach you know, especially if you're into filmmaking and stuff like that, it will just teach you a hell of a lot. But yeah, Rio Bravo.
Well,
I
I
can't
mean,
recommend
I
it
do
enough.
have a little bit of Western cred because I have seen How the West Was Won in three strip cinema, like
Oh yeah, so
projected
that's
in three
definitely
strip cinema,
well, you definitely
like,
have to. Yeah.
like, but you know,
Oh,
it's like I was raised on sci-fi, not on westerns. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
to be honest with you, westerns were. I tell you what, this is a weird thing, right? It's like my dad, like he loved film, but there's two genres that like he just didn't gel with, and that was westerns and war films. So
Okay.
like growing up, I just weren't like into them films. I didn't watch them films, and then it weren't until I started getting really into filmmaking, I was like, you know what, maybe I should check some of this stuff out.
Okay.
War
Yeah.
films still don't really gel with me like that well. It's just not my thing. I've never like been into war that much. Don't get me wrong, there's some absolute classics out there that everyone's got to see, but westerns, yeah, something just grabbed me about westerns. It was more, I think it's more about like the cinematography, more about like the really open landscapes and a lot of the way it's framed and the down and out characters and stuff. Like I said, there's definitely some problematic stuff in them. There's some westerns I've seen where, you know, obviously the cast is nearly always white, and
Mm.
if there are people of color in the cast, they're not treated the
Let's
best.
not. I
Yeah,
mean,
and then female characters as well is, yeah, you don't get a lot of female characters of note in westerns. So there's definitely some problematic issues, but there's also definitely some stuff that you can grab onto, especially if you look back with an eye of like, okay, I know this isn't great. I know there's some problems here, but there's also some stuff just as a cinema fan that you can take from it. Well, you could say that about Gone with the Wind as well. Is like Gone with the Wind is an absolute masterpiece in cinematography, costume design, set design.
I believe you. I own it. I haven't seen it. Don't
Yeah,
hurt
so
me.
you can watch it for that. You know, you can watch it for that, but then the
Yeah.
depiction of
Well, just everything.
slaves within that film is
Just
extremely
all of it.
right? Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
you
like,
know,
what? Oh my God, I can't remember what's her name. Hammy McDaniel? Is that what was that her name? The actress who
yeah,
like was
yeah,
nominated and wasn't allowed in.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
disgusting.
Like, come on. Like, uh,
Yeah, yeah, it's
we're not gonna.
disgusting.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, but
it's
there's a again, like as a cinema fan, as a filmmaking fan, there's stuff that you can go back and admire about that film. But there's
okay.
definitely
So, serious question: should I
yeah.
watch the DVD that I own, or should I wait until the world opens again and go see it in a theater like I've been trying to do for a decade plus?
If you can see it in a theater, I'd say see it in a theater.
Okay. See,
Yeah,
no,
it's
that I would totally wait for because I just happened onto it like $2
yeah.
Black Friday.
There's
So
some classic films that I would say you have to watch in the cinema. You know, either because of mainly because of the cinematography of the piece, like the ones that the two that I would say are the two ultimate films you have to watch in a cinema are The Wizard of Oz and Lawrence of Arabia. You
see,
have
that's why I
to,
haven't watched Lawrence of Arabia
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
That's why I just haven't.
yeah. And then if you can see a lot of other classic films in the cinema, definitely do. Like I've seen Casablanca in the cinema,
So have
and that's
I. That
absolutely
was really
incredible,
cool.
right? Yeah,
I enjoyed
absolutely
the
amazing.
hell out of it. I saw Citizen Kane in the theater once. That was
Oh
cool.
wow, wow,
It was
yeah, that would be
awesome.
yeah, that would be insane.
Although, let's be honest, like if you know anything about Citizen Kane, there's a little bit of trivia. Dude, the pterodactyls when I saw it in the theater, giant.
Yeah. I love that. I still love that that's in there. I love that they that's old Hollywood, man. Just reuse footage from other films and not worry about what's in the frame, you know.
At all.
Or
You know,
maybe that's
just
part of it. Maybe that's part of canon.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. They're like it takes place in a totally bonkers universe.
yeah.
That's why
It's
everything's
part of
so heightened
it's,
in that film. It's not just
exactly.
that the humans are heightened. There's fucking dinosaurs that we never even talked about.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's just so normal to them. It's so natural. They don't even talk about it.
Oh, man,
All
all
right,
right.
dudes. Let's
Talk about dinosaurs and
yeah,
monsters.
let's
We're
move away
talking
from
about the thing
dinosaurs,
from another world.
monsters,
There it is.
and westerns. We've come away from we've come away from the thing from another world. So let's
A
get
little bit.
back into that world and let's close out this one. Is there anything else you want to drop on the film? Any last thoughts?
I
Sure.
did really appreciate a lot of the little things that we've already touched upon that the one that most people know, you know, the Carpenter version had. We touched upon most of it, but there were a couple little like I really appreciated the greenhouse that's in the film, and then as they were like in that greenhouse, I was like, wait a minute, didn't Diabetes Wilford Brimley have like a like little little plant situation? Wasn't he a little gardener at one point? Like in the Carpenter version?
Might be. I
I
can't.
just I
Yeah, I
maybe
don't know. Yeah,
maybe I'm
maybe.
making it up,
Yeah.
but I seem to recall there was just a scene where he's like talking to somebody, maybe even like you know he's talking to Kurt Russell and he's just messing with a plant because he like anyway. But
That's very possible.
and how like one of the notes I took it was how I felt that in this version that the way that the dudes were trying to bust each other's balls is something that dudes do, but this felt weird, unnatural, written and forced. And it's 80s as shit, but like in the Carpenter version, at least it feels natural. Like the way they're busting each other's balls is the way dudes fuck with each other. It's just a certain kind of dude will fuck with each other.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Again, I feel like that's maybe where the film fell down for me a little bit. Was that played on because of my appreciation for the Carpenter version? Yeah, maybe. But I definitely think of like this against other films at the time. I can see the huge appreciation for it. There's definitely stuff I really appreciate of it. Is it one of my favorites?
Awful. I'm not even
Definitely.
mad that I paid for it and own it, because I might just throw it on for background.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think like some of the other films that I'm going to throw at you that I want to cover while we dive into this 50s sci-fi horror. There's definitely some stuff like I really like, so it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on them. But yeah, we'll but the one bit of trivia I'll end on, which I did find quite interesting, and obviously I've got to go there, right? Because you all know I'm a huge makeup fan, and I've already touched on the thing in this and the makeup, and then the Frankenstein top for the head. And one thing I did find quite interesting is it is said that when they actually filmed quite a few close-ups of the thing, and Howard Hawks actually had them removed because he thought the makeup wasn't good enough and didn't live up to close-ups of previous monsters we've seen. And yeah, so he had them removed. Oddly enough, though, I think in this film it actually adds to it, and it really, really works because you're not meant to humanize
No, I appreciate
this monster, right? You're not meant to humanize this alien. It's meant to just be a big, scary thing, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I actually think that the long shots and the wide shots really add to it. I don't think you need the close-ups. So I think that was actually
That was one of the things I really liked about it.
cool.
Is like
Yeah.
not to tie it to anyway. Have you ever seen See No Evil?
Oh yeah, the with Kane from WWE.
Yeah, I absolutely loved some of the shots, the setting, I've only seen it the one time, okay, so that I'm able to talk about it like this. So like Kane, he's such an interestingly built human being that they could light him almost entirely, but you never see that fucker's eyes until like the last fucking 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it had a couple like cool gore effects, but like that movie was just bad.
Oh yeah, it's not.
And,
Yeah, it's not.
But
I don't ever like shit on anything, but yeah, that's not a good film.
I started going down to that because like I felt the same way about the way that the thing is imposing, and the way that the shots are, like we were touching upon, apparently, Hawks didn't want to show the thing, so the way that it was cut around or lit or not shown, I don't know. I liked all of that a lot.
Oh yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's actually the real triumph for this film, and yeah, something that really, really stayed with me was the way that the thing was presented throughout the whole picture. Yeah, I really, really like that. Even when it's in like the ice block, the fact that you basically
yeah. No, I because I forgot about that. It was another tie. I was like, oh, nice ice block. Okay.
Yeah. It did make me the presentation of where they go back in the room and it's gone, and then they're like, how did it escape? How did it thaw out so quickly? And then that guy just lifts up the blanket and is like, this heated blanket is still on. And I was just like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you're just gonna throw that over the anyway.
Yeah, that really got me. But yeah. All right, dude. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to jumping into some 50s sci-fi horror because there's definitely some stuff I really, really like from this era. And yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to your thoughts on it. Thank you so much for listening once again, boys and girls. And until next time, stay very, very safe, horror hounds.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.